She shouted that I'd never be good enough for her, right in front of her friends. I just smiled, said, "You're right," walked out, got in my car, and drove away. Later that night, her friends reached out to me and told me what they said to her after I left. I am Evan, 28, and I work in IT support for a mid-sized healthcare company. I live in the suburbs outside Raleigh, keep a pretty steady routine, gym before work, tickets and meetings all day, quiet nights unless someone drags me out. My girlfriend is Qley, 27, and we have been together a little over 2 years. We do not live together, but we spend most weekends at her place, and I end up handling a lot of the boring shared stuff anyway. Rides to the airport, fixing her Wi-Fi, helping with errands, showing up to events with her friends. Qley is sharp, ambitious, and honestly kind of exhausting in groups. One-on-one she can be sweet and funny. Around her friends, she turns into this performative version of herself where everything is a test. If I tell a story, she corrects a detail. If I make a joke, she takes the punchline and makes it about how I am lucky she tolerates me. People laugh because it is easier than calling it out. I used to brush it off as her trying to be the funny one. Then it started happening more often and in front of people that matter to her. Her friend group is tight and a little mean, the kind that calls it honesty like that makes it fine. Her best friend Tessa is the loudest one, and Qley mirrors her when she wants approval. About a month ago, we were at a small birthday dinner for Tessa, and Qley made a comment about my job being cute and safe, like I was some kid playing pretend. I stayed calm and asked her later why she said that. She rolled her eyes and told me I was being sensitive and that I should learn how to take a joke. Since then, I have been paying closer attention. There is a pattern. When Qley feels watched, she tries to win the room by putting me slightly below her. Not enough to cause a scene, just enough to remind everyone where she thinks I rank. Last Friday, she invited me out for drinks with her friends at a busy patio bar downtown. She texted me to dress nice, which should have been a normal request, but it felt like a warning. I showed up on time, clean, polite, ready to be agreeable. The first half hour was fine. Then Tessa started asking Qley about her ex again, and Qley got that look she gets when she wants to perform. She turned to me with a smirk, and I could tell she was about to say something she could not take back. Tessa asked Qley if she was still talking to her ex, like it was a cute inside joke. Qley laughed a little too loud and did that thing where she checks everyone is watching before she answers. Then she looked at me, not like a girlfriend, more like I was a prop she could move around to make a point. She started listing things she wanted this year. Bigger apartment, better trips, a promotion. Then she said something about standards, and her eyes stayed on me while she said it. The way she framed it, it was like she was explaining a job requirement, and I was the applicant who did not meet it. I tried to keep it light. I asked if she was okay, because she sounded stressed. That was apparently the wrong move. Tessa snorted and someone else laughed, like I had said something embarrassingly clueless. Qley leaned back in her chair and said I always do that, try to make things serious when everyone is just having fun. That hit a nerve, because it is exactly what she says every time she crosses a line. Fun becomes the shield. If I react, I am the problem. I kept my face neutral and asked her quietly if we could talk outside for a second. She waved her hand at me like I was a waiter hovering too much. She said no, we are not doing that. And then she turned back to her friends and started telling a story about me that I had never heard before. It was a story about how I once got nervous meeting her coworkers and how she had to basically babysit me through the whole night. The details were exaggerated, and the punchline was that she could never bring me to a real work event because I would embarrass her. I could feel my ears getting hot, not because I thought her coworkers were some royal court, but because she was enjoying making me small. Her friends were eating it up. A couple of them looked uncomfortable, but nobody stopped her. I said I do not remember it that way. Calm voice. No edge. Just the truth. Qley tilted her head, like she was dealing with a stubborn child. She said it does not matter how you remember it. It matters how it was. Then she added that she needs a man who can keep up with her, not someone who needs constant reassurance. That was the moment I realized she was building to something. She was setting the table so whatever she said next would look justified. Standards. Keeping up. Embarrassment. And the worst part was how familiar it felt, because I had seen this exact performance in smaller doses for months. I just kept telling myself it was normal couple friction, or that she was insecure, or that she would grow out of it. Then she stood up slightly in her chair, raised her voice so the next table could hear, and aimed it straight at me. She raised her voice enough that nearby tables went quiet, That specific volume meant to embarrass without sounding hysterical. She said she was tired of pretending I was on her level. She said I was safe and boring and that she needed someone who actually challenged her. Then she said the line that landed like she had been saving it all night. She shouted that I would never be good enough for her. It was dead silent for a second. I noticed stupid details like the condensation sliding down my glass and the way the string lights above us flickered. Her friends froze. A couple of them stared at me like they were waiting to see if I would explode or beg or do something dramatic enough to justify what she had just done. I did not feel angry the way I expected. It was more like clarity. This was not a bad joke or a misunderstanding or her being stressed. This was who she chose to be when she had an audience. I stood up slowly so I would not knock the table. I smiled, not sarcastic, just calm. I nodded and said she was right. I did not raise my voice. I did not insult her back. I did not explain myself. I grabbed my jacket and walked away while she was still standing there with that expression on her face, the one she gets when she thinks she has won. I could hear murmuring behind me as I crossed the patio. I did not look back. I paid my tab at the bar on the way out because I did not want any loose ends. The bartender gave me a look like he had seen this exact scene before. I got into my car and sat there for a minute before starting it. My hands were steady. My chest was calm. I was not shaking or spiraling. I just felt done. I drove home with the radio off. When I pulled into my driveway, I turned my phone face down on the counter and went to bed. No texts. No apologies. No explanations needed. The next morning, I woke up to missed calls and messages. Not from Qley. From her friends. That was unexpected, and it was the part that made me realize the night was not over, even if my role in it was. When I finally turned my phone face up, there were 6 notifications. 3 missed calls and 3 long messages. All from different people in Qley's friend group. That alone told me something had gone sideways after I left. The first message was from Maya, who I had always thought was neutral. She said, "Hey, are you okay?" and followed it with "sorry about last night." That was not something Qley's friends usually said to me. The second message was from Tessa, which surprised me even more. It was short and clipped. "Can you call me when you have a minute?" The third was from a number I did not have saved, but I recognized the name. It was Jenna, one of the quieter ones who usually sat back and watched. I did not respond right away. I made coffee. I showered. I went through my normal morning routine because I wanted to see how it felt to not rush to fix something Qley broke. It felt calm. Too calm, honestly. Around noon, I finally listened to the first voicemail. Maya sounded uncomfortable. She said after I left, Qley kept going. She started talking about how relieved she was that she finally said it out loud. She told them she had been carrying me for 2 years, and that I was lucky she stayed as long as she did. Apparently, that did not land the way she expected. Maya said the table got awkward. Someone asked why Qley stayed if she felt that way. Someone else said that shouting at your boyfriend in public was not a great look. Qley brushed it off at first, but then Tessa made a comment that surprised everyone. She said it was unnecessary and mean, and that Qley did not have to humiliate me to prove a point. According to Maya, that is when Qley snapped again. She accused them of taking my side. She said they always do this, and that they never support her when she is honest. She got defensive and loud, enough that the server had to come over and check on them. The voicemail ended with Maya saying she wanted me to know I did not deserve that, and that she was sorry she laughed earlier. I sat there staring at the wall, phone in my hand, realizing that the version of Qley I dealt with privately was not even the worst version of her. The worst version came out when she felt challenged, even by her own friends. Then I opened the message from Jenna, and that one changed how I looked at the entire relationship. Jenna's message was longer and more careful, like she had rewritten it a few times. She said she hoped it was okay to reach out directly. She said she felt weird going home without saying something, and that what happened after I left did not sit right with her. She told me that once I was gone, Qley started venting harder instead of calming down. She kept repeating that she finally put me in my place and that it was overdue. She said she deserved better and that she was done lowering herself. Jenna said it felt less like a breakup and more like Qley was trying to get applause. What stopped the room, according to Jenna, was when Qley said she had already been talking to someone else from work and that at least he understood her ambition. She said this casually, like it was obvious and justified. That is when the mood fully shifted. Jenna said one of the girls asked how long that had been going on. Qley avoided the question. Another asked if I knew. Qley shrugged and said I would never handle it anyway. That is when Tessa told her she was being cruel and messy and that this was not empowering. It was just mean. Apparently, Qley did not take that well. She accused them all of being jealous and insecure. She said they were projecting because they were stuck and she was moving forward. Jenna said people started paying their tabs early and making excuses to leave. Before they split up, Qley tried calling me multiple times. When I did not answer, she made a joke about me sulking and said I would be back once I cooled off. Jenna said nobody laughed. Reading that made something click. Qley never thought I would leave for real. The public blow-up was supposed to scare me into trying harder or apologizing or proving myself. My exit broke the script. I did not respond to Jenna right away. I needed to sit with it. Not because I missed Qley, but because I was rewinding 2 years in my head and seeing all the moments I ignored because they were not as loud as last night. That afternoon, Qley finally texted me. Not an apology, not a question, just a sentence that told me exactly how she saw the situation and why she still thought she was in control. Qley's text came in around 4 in the afternoon. It said, "You really embarrassed me last night. You could have at least talked it out instead of storming off like that. Let me know when you are ready to act like an adult." I read it twice and felt nothing. No spike of anger. No urge to defend myself. It was almost impressive how she managed to flip the roles so cleanly. Publicly humiliate me. Privately scold me for leaving. I did not reply. I went back to work tickets and meetings and let the phone sit. A few minutes later she called. I let it ring. Then another call. Then a message that said, "We need to fix this before you make it worse." That was the phrase that finally sealed it. Fix this before you make it worse. Not before we talk. Not before we understand each other. Worse for her. That evening, Tessa called me. I almost did not answer, but curiosity won. She sounded tired. She said she wanted to be upfront because she felt complicit. She said Qley had been complaining about me for months in their group chat, framing me as insecure and lazy. According to her, Qley had been laying the groundwork so last night would not come out of nowhere. Tessa said after I left, she told Qley that if any guy had spoken to her like that in public, she would have dumped him on the spot. Qley laughed and said I would cool down and come back, because I always do. Tessa paused after saying that. Then she said this time felt different and that Qley was spiraling now because she realized she might have pushed too far. After the call, I blocked Qley's number. I did not do it dramatically. I did not announce it. I just removed the access. We did not live together. There were no shared finances. There was nothing tying us together except habit. Later that night, I got one last message through a social app one had forgotten to mute. It was Qley again. Short. Defensive. Still certain. She said, "You really think you can just walk away and be fine? Good luck with that." I did not respond. I slept better than I had in months. The next few days were quiet in a way that felt unfamiliar. No constant checking of my phone. No rehearsing conversations in my head. Just empty space where noise used to be. I went to work, went to the gym, cooked actual meals instead of grabbing whatever was convenient when I stayed over at her place. On the third day, the messages started coming from people I did not expect. Not dramatic check-ins. Just short notes. "Hope you are doing okay. That was rough to watch. You handled it better than most people would have." Each one chipped away at the version of reality Qley had been selling. Maya asked if we could grab coffee. I agreed, mostly because I wanted to understand how obvious this had been from the outside. She told me Qley had a habit of escalating when she felt bored or insecure, that she needed friction to feel validated. She said I was not the first boyfriend who had been criticized publicly, just the first one who walked away mid-sentence. That stuck with me. Mid-sentence. I did not wait for closure. I did not wait for permission. I left when the line was crossed, not after. Meanwhile, Qley was not handling the silence well. She started posting vague stories about outgrowing people and choosing herself. Then came the indirect shots. Quotes about men who cannot handle strong women. Posts about being underestimated. It was transparent enough that even people outside her circle noticed. I did not engage. No subtweets. No clarifications. No long messages explaining my side. I had already done the only explanation that mattered by leaving. About a week later, Jenna messaged me again. She said Qley was telling people I was emotionally unavailable and that I blindsided her by disappearing. Jenna said she corrected her once and Qley accused her of betrayal. They were not really speaking now. That was when I realized something important. Qley was not upset that she lost me. She was upset that she lost control of the story. And the more she tried to rewrite it, the more people saw the pattern I had lived with quietly for 2 years. That weekend, Qley showed up at my place unannounced. That was the first time I felt tension again, because this was the moment where boundaries either held or collapsed. She knocked twice, sharp and impatient, like she was already annoyed I had made her come over. When I opened the door, she looked rehearsed. Hair done. Jacket I liked. Expression set somewhere between wounded and superior. She started talking immediately. She said this whole thing had gone too far and that we needed to reset. She said disappearing was immature and that adults do not handle conflict by running away. She stepped forward like she expected to come in. I closed the door. Not slammed. Not dramatic. Just closed it while she was mid-sentence. I leaned my back against it and stood there for a few seconds, listening to her process what just happened. There was a pause. Then a knock, slower this time. Then my name, sharper, annoyed. I opened the door again, just enough to be clear. I told her this conversation was over and that showing up unannounced crossed another line. I said we were done and that she needed to leave. She laughed once and said I was being ridiculous. She said I could not seriously end a relationship like this. She said I owed her a conversation. I told her I did not owe her access. I told her the relationship ended when she decided public humiliation was acceptable. I said it calmly and once. That is when she got angry. She said I was throwing away 2 years over one sentence. She said I would regret this. She said I was proving her right by not fighting for her. I told her this was me fighting for myself. Then I closed the door again. Through it, I could hear her pacing for a bit. Then her footsteps faded down the walkway. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a message from Maya asking if Qley had shown up. Apparently, she had tried 2 other places first. That was when I realized how close I had been to staying in something that only worked as long as I accepted being diminished. There was only one more thing to do to make sure this did not drag on any longer. The last thing I did was clean up the loose ends. Not emotionally. Logistically. I blocked Qley everywhere I had not already. Phone. Social apps. Email. I changed the garage code because she had it from dog sitting once. I told my building manager not to buzz her in if she showed up again. None of it was dramatic. It was the same way you lock a door after you realize someone keeps testing the handle. The fallout kept happening without me. Friends kept reaching out, not to gossip, but to quietly confirm what they had seen for a long time. One of them admitted they thought I stayed because I did not think I could do better. That stung, but it was also honest. Qley, from what I heard, went scorched earth for a week. Posting, venting, telling different versions of the story depending on the audience. In some, I was insecure. In others, I was cold. In none of them did she mention the sentence she shouted or the silence that followed it. Then that slowed down too. A couple of weeks later, Tessa texted me one final time. She said Qley finally realized nobody was chasing her narrative anymore. She said Qley asked why everyone drifted. Tessa told her the truth. That people got tired of watching her cut someone down just to feel tall. I did not feel vindicated reading that. I felt distant. Like it was about someone I used to know. The interesting part was how quickly my life stabilized once I stopped managing her emotions. My routine stayed intact. My sleep improved. My confidence came back in small, boring ways. I stopped second-guessing sentences before I spoke them. I did not miss her. I missed the idea that if I just did things right, things would stay calm. Letting go of that was harder than letting go of her. By the time a month passed, her name stopped coming up entirely. That was the real ending, not the argument, not the door closing, not the texts. And by then, I was already somewhere else mentally, which made the final reflection simple and uncomfortable in a way that mattered. Looking back, the loud part was never the point. The shouting, the bar, the friends watching. That was just the moment everything became visible enough that I could not pretend anymore. What actually ended the relationship was quieter. It was realizing I had been adjusting myself to avoid setting her off. Choosing words carefully, letting comments slide, laughing things off so a night would not derail. I was doing maintenance on someone else's ego and calling it compromise. When she said I would never be good enough for her, she accidentally told the truth about how she saw me. Not as a partner, as a project, as something she was tolerating until something better came along. Smiling and leaving was not confidence. It was relief. The friends reaching out afterward mattered less for validation and more for confirmation. I was not crazy. I was not overly sensitive. I was just late to act. I do not hate her. I am not rooting against her. But I am done trying to be impressive to someone who only felt tall when I was smaller. Walking away did not make me stronger overnight. It just stopped the slow erosion. If there is any advice in this, it is simple. Pay attention to how someone treats you when there is an audience. That is the version they are most proud of. And if someone ever tells you that you are not good enough for them, believe them. Not because they are right, but but because staying after that means agreeing with them. I drove away that night without knowing what came next. Turns out what came next was quiet, stable, and mine.